Okay, everyone, let me get started with everything because I love to make sure that I value your time. If you took your valuable Saturday and you gave it to me, I want to make sure that you get the most out of it. If you don't know me already, my name is Arcoma, and I am the co-leader of the Osceola Repair Group with Andrea Shekelin. And we have Alba, who's also with Academy for REI, who's going to be doing the repairs today. If you have any questions or you need to contact me, please contact me at arcoma@pcstitle.com, or you can text me at 407-734-3323. And just to give you an idea what we're going to do today, we're going to do a deal analysis, and that's going to be done by myself. And then we're going to have Inspectigator present their inspection and infrared scan. And then Alba is going to present her video and pictures for the repair estimate. So you don't get to hear a lot from me the last couple months because we've been doing these inside of homes. But I wanted to go over the basics of why we do what we do. How do we do what we do as investors? So what problems do we get to solve? We get to solve property problems, people problems, and financial problems. And why do we solve those problems? Because we get paid part of their equity because they can't solve these problems on their own. And so we solve the problems with our tools of marketing, creativity, and contracts. And our job with this Osceola Repair Group is to be able to bring home the concept of we're solving problems in exchange for a reduce in price, a credit at closing, whatever that situation is. And your job as an investor is to get as many bites at the apple as you can. So what does that mean? That means that you're going to negotiate at every possible turn. You're going to use every possible problem that comes up that you solve or can solve as a way to be able to reduce the amount of equity you give to that owner. And so that's our job, is to keep chomping at the equity. So we close at the least amount, so we can either wholesale it or rehab it or keep it as a buy and hold or whatever your exit is. And I'm going to go over this property in detail today and talk about what I see about this property that I think is extremely interesting and fun. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and switch over, and I'm going to be inside the information of the property. So here we are, and this is the property. So we're at 1725 Ruston Lane, Kissimmee. And the very first thing that I see is it's a 3-2, so a bread and butter house. That's good for buy and hold. It's good for reselling. It's a manufactured home. It's on between 1/4 and 1/2 acre. There is no garage, obviously. You can, as you can well see, it's very well centered in the middle of the property. So there's a lot of land around it. It's been on the market for 25 days, which is not a bunch. I like to see over 100 days. So that's just my sweet spot when I know that if they have a mortgage on it, they've paid at least 3 mortgages without having somebody in it. I love vacant properties, obviously, because then I have the opportunity to kind of kick the tires a little bit more. If there's a tenant in place, then they don't have as much distress. And so therefore their ability to negotiate is higher than mine, and more advantageous for them to keep that property and not take my offer. So I don't like to see 25 days, but I think that this might be a situation where it will go longer than 25 days. And if anyone has an offer to put on this property, I'll be glad to put that in for you, because I think it's pretty awesome. So I'm going on down. I'm looking at, is there an HOA? No. Is there a CDD? Which is, if you don't know much about CDDs, it's about putting money in a kitty to be able to do repairs and keep up community areas. So this one doesn't have a pool and doesn't have access to a community pool as well, and which is what we would expect. And that's what we go after as investors. So if it has those things, we have less bargaining rights. It becomes more yummy for an owner occupied to be able to live in it. And that's not as good for us as far as being able to negotiate. So quick pictures, make these come up here, go back. So these are the listing pictures. As you can see, a bunch of mold. I know that they're going to go over this in detail, but I just want to quickly flip through them so you can see this is the back of the property. This is the front with the little porch. This is the kitchen, of course, which has some interesting aspects to it as far as the flooring and that extremely bright wall in the other room. Flooring again, extremely bright paint. It's an open floor plan, so that's good for the owner occupied. It's also good for a rental. Let's see. And, you know, going into the bedrooms and the bathroom. Bathroom has some lovely aspects that need to be rehabbed. Wow, that is amazing, that color. So much fun. So that makes you immediately, your optimism goes up when you see that color. Same one on the other side, another bathroom, another bedroom. Flooring throughout has had an issue, and you can see some of the plywood. Okay, awesome. So those are all the pictures. So what I do when I do deal analysis is I actually go in and look at each one of these tabs, and I'm going to go over that with you. So what I see right up front is the owner is a human. I love the fact that the owner is a human. I love the fact that they took title in their own name. Why? Because then I know they're not very sophisticated. So I'm thinking about and wanting to have advantage when I'm negotiating. And so that gives me an advantage. I'm a woman and I'm a shark, but not a lot of women are sharks. So I love seeing an unmarried woman. I love seeing an unmarried woman because I know that I'm likely to be able to negotiate against her at a higher rate because I know my business and she doesn't know my business. Okay, and so I can negotiate against this person, and I very likely can get additional concessions. I can make the problems of the house seem like just a big pain in the butt for her, so therefore she's going to give me more of her equity to be able to solve those problems. Give me a quick second. I need to plug in here. If I run out of battery, you guys are not going to like me as much, I can promise that. So we've got a human being. She's unmarried. That means that she doesn't have backup, and likely, as long as she doesn't bring any of her family members into the negotiation, I'm going to have an advantage. The estimated value as far as the computed value as far as the AVM is 133. Average, obviously the high would be 155, the low would be 110. And so that's good for me to keep in mind. So then I look at the history. And so it's only been on the market for 25 days, so it hasn't gone on and off the market. So I like to see in this area, I like to see it be like a train wreck. So it's gone on the market, it's gone pending, it's gone back to the market, it's had lots of price reductions. I like to see it be a mess. This is a little bit of a mess. It went active at 134.9, went down to 130. Look at the timing. So there's 6 days between when it started and when they did a price reduction. That tells me that they have a bit of desperation, that they may have some distress, that they may be paying a mortgage or something like that, that they don't want to be paying out of pocket. So they're starting to reduce their equity and put that back in my hands. So then obviously 4 more days after that, they went down to 127.5. And so I love these quick price reductions, number one. Number two, I love that there's been a couple of them in just a few days. So that tells me that there's something urgent about the situation with the owner. So then I look at the history and I see that they bought it in 2019 for $30K. So they bought it for $30K. My assumption from the pictures is that they may have done some of the new wood and stuff like that, but I don't have any indication in my mind that they would have done a lot of rehab or put a lot of money into it. So maybe they bought it at $30K back at the end of 2019 and did very little except to preserve the property. And so they're looking at getting a spread between 30 and 127.5 now. Okay, that tells me that they don't have a bunch into it. They went in light, and anything they get over 30 is cake for them. So I love that. Okay, and so I know that I can start with a decent offer, and I can go lower, and I can get those bites at the apple that I'm really looking for. So as I said before, this house is right in the middle of a big plot. So you've got lots of setbacks on all sides, and it's in the middle of a neighborhood with access to roads. And so I love that. I love that for resale value. I don't love it buying in because I want it to be yucky buying in and I want it to be awesome buying out. And so that it's right on a road is not good for me to be able to take some more bites, but it's fantastic in resale or getting a tenant in place. Flood map, nothing exciting because it's not in a floodplain. I just want to show you that just in case some of you guys have not seen it or don't regularly do that. So in my wild world, I love this property because it has a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of chance to be able to improve it. You could do either a flip and resale. You could certainly, if you get the price low enough, you could actually do a wholesale with this. And, you know, there's no good opportunity for a subject to because the loan is too small. And they don't seem super distressed about that. But that is an opportunity in some deals, but not in this one. And then, of course, there's a fantastic opportunity in seller financing because they have such a low amount that they own. If you paid off the 30 that they still owe, which they only got it 1 year ago, then and then seller finance the rest, you might be able to pay their 127.5 because the AVM does bear that out. So if you were paying 127.5 and with seller financing and paying off their $30,000 loan, I think this could be absolutely a deal. And it's certainly got enough space. Heated area is 1,400 square feet. It would be a great rental. It's got great access to roads and everything. So that kind of gets you in your head, in my head, as far as what I see and what I think about with this property. So I'm going to take a look and see if there's any questions in the chat, and then I'm going to be able to run co-host to Ron to be able to present his inspection. So let me look. Let me see. Is there any other than what I put up? I don't think there's any chat. Okay, super. So let's go ahead and let Ron go ahead and kick off and give me your screen sharing, and you take it from there.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, can you see the report?
Yeah, well, yep. Take the group chat out of the middle of it and we're good.
Oh, sorry about that.
No worries. Yeah, but I see it. Tells you I'm on track.
Okay, everybody, my name's Ron Morelli. I'm an inspector for the Inspectigator out of Orlando. My boss, John Bolton, actually went out there and did this inspection. So what I'm going to do now is kind of go over our report. For our investment inspections, what we like to do is go out to the property and we basically do a major component inspection. We're looking for structure, roof, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing. The major things that when you're buying these properties, what you're going to be spending money on, what's going to be too expensive, not expensive, things like that. So as we go through our report, this is just general information here about when we were here, who was here, and we move along. If you look to the left, these are all our sections. So as we move down, we're going to start at the roof section first. They had a new metal roof installed, and that's what we like to see. Metal roofs are, but what they did here is they installed it over an older shingle roof. So they did not install eave stops here. So these areas are always going to be vulnerable to insects, birds, bats, things like that. So these are just things that we look for when we're going on the roof. You're going to want to stop these areas just to avoid those problems. Over here, you can see fasteners and penetrations that haven't been properly sealed. You're going to want to have a roofer go out there and make sure all these fasteners are sealed so you're not getting moisture intrusion in these areas. These are your vent stacks and plumbing stacks. As you can see, I'm stabbing a card in this area. That shows you that moisture is able to get into that area. So once again, that goes back to a roofer going up there and just doing some sealing, maintaining, maybe some boot replacement. These aren't very high-end issues. It's just maintenance issues that'll save you costs in the future. As we move along, this is the grounds of the property. So you can see here, you have some low negative areas of grading. I'll click on this picture. You're starting to get some tunneling up against the house. So what here is you're going to need to do some backfilling and maybe some extra drainage options, adding gutters, maybe adding rocks to this area to help promote some more drainage, regrading the land so all the water flows away from the property. You can see here more of the same thing. This is the front porch entry, and you can see it's starting to erode underneath. You're definitely going to want to backfill that before you start to have any problems with that starting to sink or settle. Moving down to the exterior. So this modular home was joined together with two smaller homes, and they put it together to form one unit. This marriage joint is improperly installed. You can see they're basically used roof flashing to join the two units together. All these gaps and penetrations are always going to be vulnerable to moisture intrusion. So that's somewhere where you would need a contractor to come out there and properly design that, install it, so you're never going to have moisture intrusion in those areas. There's a few more pictures. You can see the large gaps and holes. I mean, water's just going to get in between these and cause future problems. This front porch, you have an elevated front porch, multiple areas of, mortar and block starting. Some of this stuff can just be tuck pointed and repaired. It doesn't look like it has any real structural movement, but the major safety issue is having this porch about 3 feet off the ground and no railing system around it. You have small children, older people, accidents happen. So that's just a safety issue that we recommend installing railings in that area. This is just some information here about the manufactured home being piecemealed together. We don't have the proper installation requirements. We look for features on these things that stand out as proper installation, but we don't have the actual requirements for these units. So we just put that in there to let you know. If we see something major, we'll definitely point it out. Gutters around the home, numerous downspouts, not extending away from the home. This is going to cause erosion problems, as you can see. Wood down to grade, you're skirting around the outside of the home. You have wood going directly into the dirt. This is always going to be something that you're going to need to maintain and replace over time due to moisture damage. Once that wood starts to get soft and rot out, it's always going to be susceptible to infestation from insects and things. So that's just a maintenance issue you need to keep up with. The exterior is a vinyl siding. You can see there's multiple areas of damage that can allow moisture intrusion. It doesn't seem like a major fix on this unit there, but there are some areas that need to be replaced. Vinyl siding is normally not too expensive to replace. It's just a matter of matching colors and labor hours. But you can see these areas are very susceptible to moisture intrusion. The side of the house here is completely missing its trim. The inside walls are all exposed, so that needs to be taken care of immediately. This is just some more information going back to that trim, talking about the siding installation methods. The entry, when you walk into the house, should only be an inch below this door threshold. They have cinder block and kind of amateur steps, so I would properly install that just for safety reasons. Moving down, fire safety issues and fire egress. They have wire mesh over all their windows screwed in. That's just a safety issue. If there's ever a fire, people need to be able to get out. So I would recommend removing that wire mesh from all windows. Going down into the crawl space, everything underneath there looked good, and they, like, previously you saw they had done some wood repairs to the floors. They also did that in the crawl space. But whoever did the work, a lot of damaged wood under there that's starting to rot, get wet. You're going to get insects gravitating to those areas. I recommend cleaning it out. As far as underneath your vapor barrier, underneath the floor and your insulation, this is basically see some damages. It does look terrible, but this is just a contractor getting under there, replacing, restapling, and resecuring your vapor barrier and insulation. Plumbing. You have CPVC supply plumbing on this unit, which we like to see. Your waste plumbing in most areas is what's known as ABS. ABS plastic is, it looks like PVC, but it's black. There's a lot of manufacturers that it's a defective product. We could not verify the manufacturer of this unit, so it's something to keep in mind. I would recommend replacing it with PVC, but that's within your cost. You have a few PVC replacement connections. If this isn't the proper glue, it can cause problems when you have a PVC to ABS connection. So you may get leaks down the road. The good news is being this unit, you have this crawl space, so plumbing repairs aren't going to be as costly as if you're cutting into a floor. Unfortunately, when we did do this inspection, the water system, or the water supply, was turned off. City water didn't have it turned on. We weren't able to turn it on at the main, so we weren't able to check for leaks and things like that. So that's something you would have to have the city come and turn it on for you. That same thing goes with the septic system. The septic system was turned off. The high water alarm did not function, so having a septic contractor out there before you made any purchases would be a very good idea. As inspectors, we don't cover the septic system. Underneath the house, some of the piping going from bathrooms had improper pitches that can lead to backups, debris, clogging, and things like that. But once again, these are easy repairs having the crawl space there. A plumber, it's basically just time for him. Your water heater. Our statistical lifespan for water heaters is 13 to 15 years. Yours is about 15 years old, so we would always recommend replacing it. It's functioning at the time, but have the money ready to replace. You're missing a pan, you have wood floors, wood framed areas. If this thing ever leaks, you're going to get flooring damage, wall damage. We always recommend having a pan under your water heater. Exposed wiring, all this wiring should be in conduit just for safety reasons. There's no attic in this home. All your ductwork and everything will be in the crawl space. Electric had a new system on it. Everything was okay for the electrical inspection. 200 amp service. The one thing we did have is dissimilar branded breakers. This isn't a major issue, it's just something we point out. The manufacturer's sticker does not allow it, so we recommend having an electrician come and replace it. The home's mechanical system is a package unit. It's 15 years old. It's getting towards the end of its life. It uses a refrigerant called R22. This refrigerant's no longer being made, and it's getting to be very expensive if you ever have to recharge your system. So with the older unit, 15 years old, we would recommend just replacing it. When we ran heat mode, the heat mode did not respond. Once again, could be indicating a failing system. The run amperage for your AC cooling was fine, but you know, you're on borrowed time at 15 years old with that system. Smaller things like this are just maintenance issues. When you see the blue tags, that's an FYI. Yellow tags are usually about $500 and below. Red tags will be $500 and up. So condensate line, we recommend extending away from the house so you're not causing any kind of erosion up against the house. Moving to the kitchen, there was no appliances. As you saw in the picture, we didn't inspect anything there. Interior-wise, all the carpet was gone, so we were able to find some moisture intrusion problems around the house. This will also go back to the exterior. When you have these holes and penetrations at the exterior, it can allow water intrusion. As you can see here, we have moisture staining and fungal growth on the floors in multiple areas of the home. Right now, the flooring in these areas doesn't appear to be overly damaged to where it needs to be replaced, but that fungal growth definitely needs to be remediated, and the source of the water intrusion needs to be addressed, which is most likely sourcing from the exterior somewhere. Recommend adding smoke detectors. This is just another reminder about the wire mesh on the windows. Bathrooms. Once again, we couldn't test the water and the fixtures, but the major item we did find in there is the shower was obviously leaking at some point in time. You have decking all the way down to the crawl space, a large hole. This will be a repair item. You may have to remove that tub to repair this decking. So that could get a little bit costly. And for the most part, that's about it. So going back over it, I don't see any very, very major items on this property that can't be taken care of. Now, that all goes back to what your budget is, what you're willing to spend, and the contractor you're working with. Having a contractor you work with is always a great idea because you can get those costs and an idea of what things are going to be before you make your purchase.
Awesome.
Does anybody have any questions regarding the report? I know that was kind of a quick walkthrough.
Let's see. I don't see anything in the chat. So
okay. I didn't want to take up everybody's time with every single individual section. A lot of that stuff is going to be smaller maintenance items and things. I just really wanted to cover what I think would be the higher cost items, like the flooring. The roof repairs could lead to high cost items.
So there's a question in the chat about adjoining the metal,
Yes,
the roofing metal from Ruby. So could you answer that question?
Yes, let me look at the chat. Sorry, bear with me on the Zoom stuff.
It's okay. It says, what did they adjoin with the metal, the roofing metal?
So they adjoined, basically that was two smaller modular homes that they joined together to make it a double wide essentially. So where those homes were joined together, that marriage joint, it appears they used roof flashing to join that marriage joint. That roof flashing is all bent up, there's gaps, it's bending. So you need a contractor out there to remove that, properly install in between that marriage joint.
Perfect. The next question is, did you inspect the way the mobile home was supported with stringers and runners, if that's what they call them?
Yes, ma'am. Underneath all the strapping systems and all that thing, we do look at all that when we are under there. There's HUD requirements for things that we follow, but nothing on that property seemed to be out of sort. Everything looked good.
Awesome.
Proper hurricane straps, anchors into the grounds, that was all there.
Fantastic. The next question was, were the only roof defects, the bird stops, and the flashings.
The bird stops, and yes, ma'am. That roof, for the most part, is in good shape. A metal roof will last a long time, but it needs maintenance like anything else. So a lot of those fasteners were missing rubber gaskets and things. So having a roofer go up there, at least seal them, and then you always recommend about annually, at least once a year, have a roofer get up there and just do a quick inspection. It'll save you money in the long run.
And then Ruby's asking, no permit required for that. I think it was in relation to her previous question about the roof.
For the marriage joint?
Yeah. To expand it, sorry, she gave us a little bit more detail there. No permit required for that, question mark. Is there a permit required to expand a modular home?
Absolutely. I mean, anytime you're going to do anything like that. But once again, I'm not overly familiar with the HUD requirements. It's different than the Florida Building Code. Okay, gotcha. But I would assume anytime you're going to expand or do anything, they always want you to pull a permit.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to give another minute here for anyone to pop any questions in the chat or open up your... Okay, Judy is asking, if two homes were put together, they each have to have a serial number, right?
Yes,
so
ma'am.
If you fix up and resell, would you be able to get financing?
You should be able to. When we were at that property, actually, one of the insignias had been removed. So you would have to go to the seller for that information and make sure, you know, the makes and models, Osceola, have everything matches up.
Right.
I mean, that would be information that you would want to get from the seller.
Yep. And in my world, I would have, you know, the county go ahead and attach the mobile homes legally to the land. And so I would make them real property instead of personal property. So if you do that paperwork and pay that fee with the county, then you don't no longer have to do the yearly registration of these two mobile homes, in this case, that were attached together. You just pay your property taxes like normal, and they consider it real property. And there's a couple of, you know, hoops to jump through with that, but that's something that can always be done. And then when you sell the property, it has a higher value because it is real property versus personal property. This is not in a park. So Judy asked, they're not in a park, are they? No, this is not in a park. This is on real property, but you can have real property with, you can have dirt with a mobile home on top of it, which is personal property, and you can have dirt with a mobile home on top of it that's attached legally to the land, meaning that it's part of the parcel, and so therefore it's real property. And so that's what I'm recommending that you do. So how do you determine if it's real property? Are they paying just taxes, property taxes, or are they registering their vehicle? Okay, because that house, that mobile home, is a vehicle with the DMV. So if they're paying the DMV once a year, it is personal property. If they're not paying the DMV, okay, then they have attached that mobile home to the land and they're only paying their property taxes. That's how you can tell. And we can tell in the back end, obviously title wise, but absolutely, that makes a big difference in the perception of value. And obviously when I buy something, I hate to reiterate this too many times, when I buy something, I want low value. So I want it to not be attached to the land, but I want to add value by actually getting that paperwork done. And then when I resell it, I want to resell it as part of the real property. So I just added a little bit of value to that because now they don't have to pay per year their DMV taxes, their DMV registration. Let's see. So another question, I may have missed it, but were there problems in the ventilation in the crawl space? Back to you, Ron.
So that's what I was just kind of pulling up some pictures. No, all the ventilation is good. There's just some repairs that need to be made. You can see here it's been torn. Some insulation's been missing. It looks to me that somebody was in there doing repairs, cut it open, didn't finish the job.
Gotcha.
So it's just a few spots, but they need to be taken care of.
Yeah. Awesome. Any other questions from you guys? I'm going to turn it over to Alba if you don't. Let me give a minute or two.
I have a question if I can ask.
Go ahead, sweetheart.
Yes, my question is about the crawl space. does it need any kind of the insulation? Because I purchased a property or I'm in the process and it doesn't have any insulations. I just wonder that is code requirements or no?
I'm sure there are requirements for the insulation, but without any insulation, you're going to get a lot of energy loss. You know, heating and cooling your home, you're going to lose a lot just going through those wood floors. So I would highly recommend having some sort of insulation in there,
Oh,
especially having no attic access. So, I mean, you don't know what's going on above you. You need to have that flooring insulated.
yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions before we turn this over to Alba to do the repair estimates?
Would you like me to keep my screen up for you, Alba? Do you see anything you'd like me to scroll through on the report?
Sure, if you want. Can everybody hear me okay?
So she can also change it to her screen sharing if she wants to also.
Yeah, whatever you'd like to do.
Let's go ahead and keep his up because it's just so nicely laid out. And then what I'll do is I'll send you all the pictures that I have with my notes so that anybody wanting additional pictures and so forth, they have it. So if you're all done, I'll go ahead and just start.
Just a
Absolutely.
quick story. Alba went out to the property today to do some last minute stuff. And guess what? 4 people showed up out there. And so she was greeting people and trying to get the rest of the stuff she needed to get done. So if anyone went out to the property, I'll be glad to share with you this video so you can see everything if you missed it. And I apologize on behalf of me and COVID if there was anything that was misunderstood and whether or not we were going to have an in-person meeting versus a Zoom meeting. And I was trying to tell everybody a week ago on every channel I know, Eventbrite and Facebook and everything else, that we were doing this as a Zoom meeting because of COVID spiking. So I apologize for that if that was my fault. And I'll turn this over to Alba to do her stuff.
Thank you, thank you. So let me start off with, this was an excellent home for investment. It's a dream when you can walk into a layout like this one with just the amount of work that needs to be done. You can flip this very quickly, and if your goal is to sell it or keep it for rental, you would be in the green. Like, it's a great, great property. A lot of the heavy lifting was already done. A lot of stuff is already exposed. So it was very easy to identify where your money was going to go. We can go ahead and kind of start from the outside and go in. We did see a lot of water coming towards the property, which is always a concern with these manufactured homes because there's always such a high level of moisture anyway. To add all this water, it could become an issue. So there's definitely a lot of things that could be redone. First of all, gutters. There's not, the gutters are only on certain parts of the house. We want to make sure there's gutters throughout the entire house, but you can actually have somebody come out and do some drain fields and really help that out. There's extenders that you put on the bottoms, and I know we had talked about it before, to kind of push the water away from the house. One of the things that we always recommend with manufactured homes, and we don't see it very often, is putting a vapor barrier down there. This will absolutely help with moisture levels, any kind of fungal growths. It's fairly inexpensive. It should be there. And then obviously, you know, the insulation within the crawl space is also important too. But that's going to change based on the dwelling and you know, different county codes and so forth, what that needs to look like.
So how much would a vapor barrier cost? Because now you got me interested, because I have a, you know, block house that I think that it doesn't have any gutters whatsoever. And I want to know how much would a vapor barrier cost for this house. So I can kind of do a little mental math.
Sure, absolutely. So this house was about 1,400 square feet. So to put the vapor barrier, materials, and labor, you're pretty much looking on a square foot for the vapor barrier, about 75 cents a square foot. It's very inexpensive. With material, you'd be looking at about $1.25.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, and that's going to help a lot with you know, your utilities and everything in the long run as well, to get a good vapor barrier installation down there. So in addition to that, we did notice that the vinyl siding was placed over the existing siding. We couldn't get a great look, but we always want to make sure that there's nothing under there that, you know, that we're not noticing. For example, termites, excessive water damage, mold, and so forth. Yep. So we want to make sure that these seams are sealed properly. The house also, you could see the windows, the frames were kind of removed, the new vinyl was put in, and then the frames were put back. Those also need to be sealed properly. These tiny pinhole leaks have huge issues in the long run if they're not fixed properly, and it really doesn't take very long for that to surface. So don't cut corners. Make sure you're walking through with your contractors, letting them know this needs to be tight. It needs to be just sealed very tight. All these little holes, you know, they're very easily repaired. We don't ever want to cut corners when it comes to sealing these types of things.
So Masood's asking about how much would it be to replace the outside, to do that outside work?
For this particular house, because it was very minimal, it wasn't much, we'd probably be looking at maybe $1,000, $1,200. It's so easy to fix it. It's so easy to fix it, and there really wasn't much, even with the seams that it needed, even with, you know, re-sealing all of the windows. It's fairly easy at this level. Because I can't see behind the vinyl, that could change if I needed to put, you know, new plywood, new vapor barriers behind there, then it would change. But just to give you an idea, let's say we were working with a piece that's, you know, 3 by 5, you know, it's quite significantly large, you know, just to replace the exterior siding, which is the vinyl, we'd be looking at about maybe $150. If we had to remove it, fix the plywood, put new vapor barrier, new mesh, everything, we would be looking about $350. So depending how moderate the damage is behind that would obviously change it significantly. But
Perfect.
it's still, I mean, this is a fraction of what it would be if it was stucco, brick, or something else. So it's still very, very affordable. Water damage and termites are the big things that you worry about with these manufactured homes. So
there's another question about that's pertinent to now, which is, are there any efficient windows that can be added to the mobile home? A lot of the windows look kind of new to me, and you can tell me if that's right or wrong based on you being there. And what would be the cost of replacing any windows that are necessary in this home?
Sure, absolutely. So if we're just replacing and sticking to the same size window and everything, as far as labor, we'd be looking at about $180 to $250 a window, depending how big it is for this size more or less. There was some that were a little bit bigger, but we're still within that price range. The window itself would cost anywhere from, you know, 90 all the way up to 300-400, depending how elaborate you wanted to do. The windows were really good. I mean, they were missing some screens, but that's very inexpensive to replace. But the windows were good. There was some leaking coming through some of them, not because it's, you know, not installed properly. It just requires maintenance. So you will have to reseal them again and potentially change some of the window sills, but it's also very minimal costs. I really wouldn't invest in replacing the windows on this property. I would just invest in maybe redoing some of the seals and the window sills, and then sealing the windows back up.
Awesome.
So yeah, and there was a window in each room. So that's 1, 2, 3, then 1 in the kitchen, 4, and 2 in the living room. So that's 6. So if we did want to replace these windows for a decent window, nothing too elaborate, you'd be looking with labor about $3,000-4,000 for redoing windows in this property.
Gotcha. It's another question was, would you pressure wash the vinyl siding after all the repairs are done? Because there's a good amount of mold on the outside as well.
I would. It's really just, yeah, it's not very much at all. I don't know that I would pressure wash it. I'd probably do some soft washing, which if you're not familiar, it's a chemical that they put They allow it to sit for a little bit and then they rinse it right off and it just comes right off. I'm not a fan of pressure washing a whole lot because you can cause some more damage to it, especially with, you know, with vinyl homes and homes with siding. So I would definitely look into soft washing it. The price is still very comparable.
Okay, awesome. Okay, I'll let you go on, and if there's any questions, I'll butt in there.
All right. Now, one of the things that we also noticed with the house is that it had this this patio area. It had 3 steps going up the patio area and then 2 more steps going into the house. If you're trying to flip this home and you're planning to work with like a VA or an FHA, I'm pretty certain they're going to want a rail throughout that entire patio. Anything that's going to be a risk or a danger, they're going to want to make sure that that's not existing with these types of mortgages. So the railing is probably gonna have to go in, and the steps right now they have cinder blocks on the patio. Those are also not going to meet code, so those will have to be redone. If we look at the 3 steps in the front, if I had to remove those, well, those 2 steps we can hold on. I'll let you do your find the picture and then I'll go.
I'm trying to go back to see that. I don't
No,
know
it's
if I
okay.
have a
Totally,
good overview
absolutely.
here.
You've got like a side picture of it, but not a front picture of it. No
Yeah.
worries.
That's fine. So those 3 steps, if I had it my way, I would remove those and I would put concrete steps in, or wood steps in, something that was like a little more, you know, appealing and structurally sound. For those 3 steps, if we did it in wood or in concrete, you would be looking roughly at about $500 to $700 to re-secure those. The steps on the patio, I would absolutely do it out of concrete, and you would be looking at about $175 for those. It's really not a whole lot of material or time. It's just, you know, labor.
What about railing around? What would that cost?
Sure. The railing around, I would probably go with wood because that's going to be the most cost effective. And to do that, that space was about 6 by 10 by 6. You'd be looking at about $1,000 for that, for the wood.
Okay.
A little bit more if you were to do the metal or something. But, you know, the nice thing about this price point, and this is what I tell my investors all the time, you know,
Oh, you got
homes and want to put, you know, the very expensive finishes. In this price point, you want it to look nice, you want it to be safe and secure, but you don't need to get so elaborate with some of those finishes. It's really important that we put the money where it's going to mean the most: bathrooms, kitchens, flooring, things like that. So I know, you know, for a fence, a price difference of $400 or $500 doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're already 20 grand into a property and you start adding all these extras, then the bottom line starts looking a little scary. So and make friends with your contractors. Try to find somebody who has a project manager with them. There's going to be so many things that come up along the way that they'll be able to troubleshoot before it even gets back to you. Huge plus if you can find a contractor that does have that, or themselves is great at project managing along with doing the labor. So let's go ahead and start peeking inside the house. I absolutely love the floor plan. You've got the master bedroom on one side, which was on the left. You've got the main areas in the middle, and then you've got 2 bedrooms on the right. People really like this floor plan. It's very sought out when they're looking for properties. It's got somewhat of an open concept as well. It's got small little dividing wall between the kitchen and living room, but for the most part, it's spacious. And it's very bright. Windows that bring in natural light are a huge advantage. Skylights are also pretty nice, but make sure they're not leaking. Don't worry about putting in if it doesn't have it. If it does, just make sure that they are in good condition and free from moisture and water intrusion. But as we walk into the house, we did notice a lot of the house was already demoed. All the floors were pulled up, which is fantastic because then there's no guessing what lies beneath. We did see some water on the plywood, as you can see there. Quite a few places had that, but it could be remediated by removing the mold and stuff. The nice thing is, let's say it did need to be replaced, putting in new subfloor on a manufactured home is not, it's not very expensive. There is a cost associated, but it's not very expensive.
So tell us how much that would be for this square footage, 1,400.
Absolutely. So if we go, okay, so if we had to replace the whole thing, we'd be looking at a few $1,000s, maybe $3,000-$4,000. But that would be insane to do it because the house didn't need it at all. It was very clear where it needed it. If we run to the master bedroom, that's where we saw quite significant amount of damage. Do you have a picture of the master? I think
I don't believe I
with
do.
a hole in it.
Yeah.
The one with the hole in it, I believe, was a bathroom.
Yeah, it was the bathroom, and it had like a hole in the
Yep.
in the plywood. Perfect. So that was the corner where the wall met the tub. Okay. There was a space between the tub and the tub wall. So after a significant amount of time, the water kind of channels and drops right in there. So that's very common. If I had to remove that plywood, we would be looking at a sheet of plywood that I would remove, replace, seal it, just to do that little bathroom. And that bathroom is, I would say, about 5 by 7. We would be looking at about $400 to replace that whole bathroom. You know, it's really not that much money, but that's something that you definitely want to do, because with time that'll get a little more brittle, and then whatever floor you want on it, you don't want it to have problems because you didn't take care of the subfloor. So subfloor, don't cut corners, just do it, and don't let people do piecework, because sometimes that with time starts to buckle and you have other issues. If they need to replace the whole sheet, let them replace the whole sheet. Trust your contractor when they tell you, yeah, I see it's only, you know, a 2 foot damage, but we really need to replace the whole thing. Just go with it when it comes to that. So I like this master bathroom. I'm gonna upload some pictures as well, so you can see the whole master bathroom. It's got a small linen closet. It's got the tub, the shower, a single vanity sink, and a toilet. If I was to demo the whole thing, I would leave it as a tub shower, but I would put a new tub. Right now it's got that prefab fiberglass stuff. I would remove all of that. I would put new drywall, a new toilet, a new vanity, and the flooring that I use throughout the house, I would continue it in this bathroom as well. That whole renovation for that master bathroom, and again, this is a 5 by 7 bathroom, we would be looking at about $4,500 to $5,000. And that's really updating it. And I'm not talking about, you know, granite counter vanity. I'm talking about just the standard stuff. This is the price point that we're in. You don't need to go that elaborate, okay? So treat each one of your flips as their own person. Don't try to do what you did previously, you know, in a different house. Try to bring that in. Look at the price point. We get a lot of clients that get pretty stubborn with that. They want to continue the same style throughout their entire homes, and then at the end of the day, they're like, oh my goodness, there's so much money that got poured into this one. Yeah, you got to change it. You got to take it down a notch in certain properties. But I would use, you know, on the walls, I would use a standard builder, 12 by 12 tiles. I would put, you know, some nice new fixtures on it, but, you know, try to update it, but without overdoing it either. So if we move into, let's move out of the master, and if we move into the kitchen, I don't know if you have any pictures.
Yeah, I don't think there's much in the kitchen.
That's okay. I have some pictures, and I made notes on all of my pictures. Well, I love kitchens. Kitchens, you know, really speak to people, especially nowadays where people are very into entertaining and hosting and family and things like that. Like, kitchens are a huge deal breaker. People will fall in love with a property just because of that. So make sure that we pay a lot of attention to this. In this price point, I felt the cabinets were in pretty good condition. I didn't see any, you know, water damage to them. A couple of the panels inside of the cabinets, the base cabinets, needed to be replaced. Very easy to do. A lot of times the wood under the sink in the kitchen is damaged, so we've got to take it out and replace that. That's $25 at Home Depot. I think it's even less, maybe $16 for that plywood. They're already pre-cut. It's very easy to just switch it out. That's not, even though it looks ugly and scary, it's not a problem. I would leave these cabinets there and I would just paint them. If I had to replace it, it's a 10 by 10 kitchen. If I had to replace it, we'd be looking at about $4,500, $5,000 in cabinets. Because they're in good condition, I would just spend some money in getting them cleaned, degreased, and repainted. The nice thing about that is that's probably going to cost about $1,500, $2,000. It's very minimal. It's going to get you that updated look, invest into some hardware, and call it a day when it comes to the cabinets. In this price point, when it comes to the counters, they now have some Formica counters that have a granite type finish, a granite type look. To do these counters in this 10 by 10 kitchen in Formica, we'd be looking at about $600 to $800. And that's installed, labor, materials, everything. It's very cost effective, and you can get away with that in this house. If you wanted to spend a little bit more money and do a level 1 granite, then you would be looking at about maybe $1,800 to redo this kitchen. This is my advice to you. If you're flipping this home to sell it, you could get away with granite, with Formica counters, and still be in the green. If you're looking to flip it to rent it, I would spend the money and get granite, because, you know, a few years down the line, you're not going to have to worry about replacing those again. Those stones are very, very durable, and I would spend the money if your goal is to rent it and not sell it. But either finish would look very nice. We've done quite a few homes in Formica, and people don't even realize it until they touch it that it's not granite. So it has a great look, and it gets the job done. Another thing that I've done with a lot of my investors in this price point is, don't feel that you have to go and get brand new appliances, state of the art. You don't need to do that. It'd be nice if you could get newer appliances, but they don't have to be new. I have a handful of secondhand stores where you can get gently used appliances for a fraction of the price. So for this kitchen, it needed a dishwasher, a refrigerator, and a stove. I would try to make sure that they're all the same color, and if you can get them all the same brand, that would be great. But if you wanted to do all white, all black, or all stainless steel, you'd be okay in this price point. If you go to a secondhand store that sells gently used appliances, for these 3 items, you'd probably be paying around $700 for all of them. If you go to a Home Depot and try to do the same thing, you're probably going to be up in the $2,200, $2,400 range. So this is really big to consider when you're updating these appliances. I love, and be very careful. When I say gently used, I'm not talking about OfferUp or Facebook. They come with no warranties, and you really don't know what you're buying. I would find a store that sells gently used appliances. They're all over the place, because they do a couple things for you. They usually warranty it for 30, 60, 90 days. So that's huge. Especially, you know, if you're selling, you can pass that on. Number 1. Number 2, you can purchase them and leave them in their warehouse until all your contractors are done, and then bring them in. So it allows you to kind of maximize your time and not have the house full when your contractors are trying to finish up the work. That's great. And number 3, they're already cleaned for you. So you don't have to worry about, oh my goodness, now I got to get an additional cleaning crew to do, you know, your deep cleans and so forth. So all these little things are just added pluses to when you're doing these things. I have a few in my list of contacts. We do a lot of work in certain areas, so I make sure that I've kind of sought out these appliance stores so that if my client does want to use them, I have somebody that I know has sold good stuff and will work with me, because there's so many times where I'm like, listen, I know I had to pick the appliances up a week ago. Can you hold them 2 more weeks? And they're like, yes. So it's really good that you make these relationships, even, you know, with something like this. Now, I'm just talking about the 3 kitchen appliances, because you still need a washer and dryer in that house. So when you're dealing with that much, they love to work with you, and they will give you even better deals if they know that you're continuing to send them business, even if they're a store. So as far as the kitchen, that's what we would be looking at. If we had to gut everything, new appliances, new counters, reconnecting all of the appliances, we would probably be looking at around $8,000, $7,000 to $8,000 kitchen renovation at this price point. Just to give you guys some numbers there. If you guys have questions on, okay, this is my first flip, I really want to make this appealing, I'm not too sure how to do it, you can always call me. Another little tip of advice, because sometimes I'm given properties that I'm like, wow, this one's going to be tough. You can go to local stores, you know, and different stores are treated differently, but there's some Home Depots that offer kitchen project managers that will help you create that. And a lot of your contractors will have accounts, like we have an account with Home Depot, so we get a lot of contractors pricing. So if you go and ask them for some design tips, we can absolutely use them, as long as they're going to, you know, compare in pricing as far as certain materials. So be open with your contractors. Ask them if they have insight. If they don't, you know, reach out to other stores. Stores are making it really easy for you to work with them and offering a ton of features that they didn't have before available to you. So definitely explore all those options when it comes to the design. Do we have any questions with the kitchen?
Not with the kitchen. There's a couple I'll go back to. So did you have a company that was going to give you an estimate on the mold remediation, and how much was that? From what I heard, you were just going to replace the places that had mold and fix the intrusion problems, but was there any place that you thought needed to have a mold remediation?
Sure, absolutely. So where the two modular homes were seamed together, there was quite a bit of mold in that ceiling seam. I wouldn't go to repair that drywall. When you are repairing these large surface areas, I don't care how good of a contractor you are, you can always tell a little bit that there was a repair. You definitely don't ever want to raise questions in an inspection that there was some type of water repair, because that just brings a whole slew of stuff. So I would definitely invest in getting that remediated and repainting versus taking out the drywall. I did not get a quote for mold remediation for this property. I have done it in the past. We recently took out a kitchen, and behind the kitchen sink, the drywall was all molded there, but the drywall wasn't damaged. It was a very simple fix. I would say the amount of space that they had to treat was about 5 by 7. And we ended up paying about $200 to have that treated. I don't usually use companies to treat it very often, because a lot of the work that we do, we have to replace the drywall. But just to give you a ballpark of what that cost us to do behind a sink. Now, a lot of times, you know, they'll price it per area. Sometimes they'll price it per square foot. Sometimes it's all different. So I couldn't even really give you a realistic quote for a house like this, because it just depends who's treating it and how they're treating it, what they're using, and so forth. Do we have any other questions?
Let me look here. Scrolling down. Da-da-da. Someone asked what your contact information was, and I posted that in the Academy for REI Facebook group so that everyone can go back and get your contact information from your Facebook page. And so it says, should you disclose the mold treatment if you would flip? Well, I'll answer that as a broker. Disclose, 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 disclose. It never hurts you to disclose. It always hurts you not to disclose. And so anything that you've done, let them know. You repaired it. This is how you repaired it. This is what the cost was. Whatever level of detail you can go into is going to always help you. Because if it comes back to bite you, you want to make sure that you are always being fair. And so you have a different answer for that, Alba, or want to add on to that?
Oh, absolutely. I actually, anytime we flip a property on the project managing side, which is you know my job, I give a detailed list of what was fixed, what was updated, what was remodeled, what products were used, and I hand it over to the real estate agent, and they actually use that entire thing a lot of times, where they cut and paste and put it in there in some of their descriptions, because it helps, but it also reassures your clients that it was done right. You know, we didn't cut corners, it was done right, and so forth. Going back to the whole mold thing, property, there's certain areas that I absolutely, right off the bat, look instinctively. Ceiling, always look for staining, yellowing. I mean, we all know that. But if you can kind of keep a little step ladder in your trunk so that you can kind of look into the attic, because what you're seeing on the interior ceiling is just a small glimpse of what's probably on the other side of that plywood or drywall. And it really helps to see in the attic just how much damage is there, okay? A lot of times we'll walk in and they've already tried to seal a lot of what you see on the ceilings with, you know, primer and paint. So a lot of times you don't even see what lies behind that. So keep that step ladder, try to peek into the attic with a light, take pictures, and just see. It's not a deal breaker if you have to replace drywall or plywood. It's actually really cost effective, but you want to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row when you take your numbers down and you hand them over to your contractor. When you're flipping homes, time is not on your side. If it's a good property, it's going to go in a heartbeat. So you don't want to waste any time having to go back to the house 2 and 3 times because you were missing measurements or because you missed a picture or something like that. For me, if I can't go with my client to the house and give them an insight, if I can't go with them, they already know what I expect so that I can give them a quote without ever having to go to the house. Now, that gives them a ballpark figure. I obviously eventually need to go to the house, but at least it gives them enough of an idea of what that flip would cost to where they're not wasting time or missing out on a deal because they couldn't get a number of what it would cost them to renovate. So make sure you take your pictures, make sure you take your measurements. I feel like you need to have certain tools in your toolbox as an investor when you go look at properties. Number one is your laser measuring tape. Your laser measuring tape will allow you to measure a house in 5 minutes versus using a standard measuring tape. It'll take you, a good 20, 30 minutes. So get yourself a laser measuring tape, get yourself a moisture reader so that, you can see, okay, I see there's water damage. Is it active? Is it old? Your moisture reader will let you read a lot of those levels. Anything over 11% is of concern. And you're gonna want to look into that a little more. So you've got your step stool, your laser measuring tape, your moisture reader, and get yourself a stud finder. They have them. They're excellent. You don't know how many times I get, Alba, I need you to go to a property, see if a wall is weight bearing. I have even gifted them to some of my clients because I'm like, listen, I could go, but you can find it very quickly. Let me give this to you. And they have these really cool ones now that you can literally just connect it to your phone, rub it against the wall, and it shows you if there's wires, if there's a 220 line behind there, if there's a stud. These are really good tools to have, because as investors, it's very often you're going to be tearing down walls. And you don't want to have to say, okay, well, let me see if I can get my contractor back here to see and look. You want to give him all the tools that he needs to give you a quote so that you can bid properly on these properties and get them. So those are things that I would definitely have in your toolbox for sure.
So
Do you guys have any questions?
one second real quick, Alba. So I talked about in the beginning in the deal analysis about bites at the apple. So let's just start to count up the bites at the apple we've already had. So we saw the property. So let's step back one second. So we put an offer in on the property. So we're using our formula, we're using our BPO or tax assessed value formula times 0.65. And then we're guesstimating the repairs. We're just kind of spitballing what the repairs might be based on the pictures, because real investors don't go out to the property until after they have an offer accepted, right? And so we're throwing 20 offers and we're getting 3 to 5 accepted. And then we're at that point when we have that accepted, then the actual investor most of the time will go out and look at the property and see what they see. And they're going to use those simple tools that you just talked about to be able to look at it and see if they were really kind of on par as far as the number they put in their original offer. Then they're going to schedule the inspection. Obviously, they're going to have Inspectigator go out and do the inspection. And based on that inspection, they're going to do a renegotiation of the property. So now we're 2 bites at the apple. We got the immediate value of the math that we did and our repairs that we had in our head. Now Inspectigator goes out and we use this inspection report to get another bite at the apple. Okay. And so in this case, the property didn't have the utilities turned on, didn't have the plumbing turned on. And so if that was the case, then we would have that turned on and we would have some sort of septic inspection and what have you. So then we get another bite at the apple, likely another renegotiation. And so then we get the appraisal done, okay? And that is another opportunity for a bite at the apple. And then we get the title work done, and then there's a lien, a judgment, a name problem, whatever that is. And that's another bite at the apple. So we're trying to get about 5 bites at the apple from beginning to end. And so she's giving you ways to be able to look at this property and show the owner that it's a problem. And we solve problems by people giving us their equity. That's how we solve problems. We get a initial amount off at the beginning. We get an amount that we renegotiate with the inspector. And then we get another amount off based on anything else we learn about the property. So we're just chipping away at their equity. They're going to give it to us willingly because the problem is so big and their solutions are so small. Now our solutions are big and we don't see them as much of a problem. So we're going to scoop up that equity and solve that problem, hopefully with less expensive means, and be able to catch the difference between what we thought it might cost and what we end up getting it costs. And so all of these little tiny things she's saying about getting gently used appliances or painting instead of replacing, all of that is going to save you money, and that's going to give you one more ability to leverage that equity. So go on again, please. Thank you so much for everything you're saying.
Yes, absolutely. Another thing that we saw, there's no floors in the house. It's just subfloor, so we can't leave it like that, obviously. Floors are a huge expense, okay? With these modular homes, I have to fight with my clients all the time because they go to the flooring store and they want to put tile because they're looking to rent the property and not sell it. With these homes, it doesn't matter how good the elevation was and how good the foundation is. We live in Florida. It's going to move. Tile will crack. You can put it in the bathrooms and you'll be fine, but to put it on big surface areas, you're going to have problems in the long run. Okay? So if it's a property that you want to rent out and you think the way to go is tile, With modular homes, that's not always the case, okay? So please take that into consideration. Then I fight with my clients because they go to the store and they see laminate. And the laminate is $1.25, 79 cents a square foot, versus the luxury vinyl that's $2.50, $2.75, okay? You can put laminate in these properties, but there's always so much moisture that they buckle, they expand, and you have, in the long run, a lot of issues with laminate and vinyl. Even if you follow all the protocols of sealing the floor, putting your vapor barriers, as soon as that laminate goes in, or the wood floor, there's going to be some movement with that. There's going to be some swelling, you know, even the moisture, even if there's no active water under there seeping through, the moisture levels are high on these modular homes. Go with the vinyl. You don't have to worry about any of that with the vinyl. You still have to put your vapor barrier. You're still going to install it the same way you do the laminate, but down the line, you're not going to have those issues. We recently, not recently, but we put some laminate down on another property. Within 1 month, the house had not even been a complete month on the market. The floors started buckling. It was a very, very inexpensive laminate. It came with a lot of problems. We had to come back out to the house twice to fix it. Fix what a contractor had done previously, and even work that we had done, because there was no way to tell how much water was going to come through with the rainy season. That ended up causing a lot of problems. So be very careful when you try to cut costs in certain materials, because in the long run, labor wise, it's going to hurt. With these modular homes, I highly recommend you always use the luxury vinyl. You can use it in really in areas that you couldn't use it before, because this is a newer product. You know, it's made more efficiently, so it can resist, you know, high traffic, you know, high water areas. You could put it in bathroom now and kitchen. So I would definitely invest the money in the vinyl. 1,400 square feet. If you get a good contractor, he should be charging you about $1.50 to $2 a square foot to install. That's a pretty fair price. If you continuously give your contractor work, he could even get it down. So that's a good ballpark. If somebody charges you $250, it's still not a deal breaker. It's still a pretty good price for installation, but you want to get somebody who's going to get it as low as possible for you. As far as floors, there's a couple ways that you can also do. Anytime you install flooring, any laminate, any vinyl, if you don't want to pull up existing baseboards, which usually is what should be done, you should pull up the baseboards, install the flooring, and then reinstall your baseboards. If you don't want to go through that headache, you can leave the current baseboards, install the flooring, and then install what they call a quarter round throughout all of the areas that you're going to install the flooring. This is a fraction of the price than removing the baseboards. So that's another thing that you could just keep in mind. If the house doesn't have baseboards, this house did not, you can just install the flooring and install the baseboards. But just things to take into consideration when you're getting quotes for flooring and so forth. Do we have any questions on flooring?
Let me go back to the chat. Give me a second. So there was a question, I think that you probably already answered it. Do you normally expect the sellers to have the utilities turned on before inspection? And especially since the septic tank could be expensive, we always have the utilities fully turned on before an inspection. We didn't in this case because it's an active listing. We don't have an offer in on it. And so obviously we don't have the right to ask them to turn on the plumbing, and we just kind of worked around it. And this house is awesome in every way. So we didn't have to worry about having one additional system to be able to have a good amount of information to present for you. And then let's see, did you have company out for mold remediation, and how much would that be? Maybe Alba, you can answer that. If you had to have someone out to do mold remediation, what do you think it might cost?
Sure. If I had to guesstimate for this particular house, we would probably be looking at about maybe $900 to do the entire house for any mold remediation. I'm thinking right now, when I was talking about the mold before, the certain things that I look at right away. Look at your interior furnaces and AC vents. A lot of times you'll see mold growing around those. That's a concern. A lot of times you'll see under the sinks, behind the washing machines. Look in all those areas. I always look there right off the bat. But this house, it really didn't have a lot. It wasn't green and hairy like we normally see. So I would say, for anywhere from $600 to $900, you can get it all taken care of. Remediation companies usually don't charge you anything to come out and give you a quote, and they're usually it's not a huge expense if you had to do mold remediation.
Awesome.
It would definitely be a fraction of what it would cost to replace drywall. Probably a quarter of what it would cost to replace drywall. But I take that really seriously, because mold is an active fungal growth. It will spread. So don't ever try to cover something up with insulation and then dry. No, they need to fix it. Because in the long run, yeah, that can have some serious repercussions. So definitely make sure that nobody cuts corners on that aspect. And anytime we do, a flip that involves any kind of molds at any level whatsoever, I always recommend my clients do a system clean that involves the air handler and the vents.
Okay.
1,400 square feet. I have a handful of companies that do that service for us. That usually runs about $200 to $250. It's excellent. It's excellent. It's a good maintenance for your.
So Alba, explain what that is, because I know a little bit, but I'm pretty sure you got a lot more depth on that than I do. What do they do, and what is the process, so that we can kind of just wrap our heads around it?
Sure. So anytime you're doing a flip, there's an obscene amount of dust and particles, paint that is just in the air. The system should always be shut off, but we're in Florida and that doesn't always happen when we're doing work on the houses. So what happens is a lot of that buildup starts to sit on the coils and the system. So what happens is that creates a barrier of letting the system do what it needs to do when it's turned on, whether it's the AC or the heat. So when I get my HVAC people to come in, they pretty much open the unit. I don't know what they use, but they use some substances, some chemicals to clean that all off your coils and the ducts. It's just great. It's really, really good for you to do that. And then what they do, and I'm sure you guys have seen it on Facebook and on different things, where they shoot that snake up and they start cleaning all of the air vents.
Yeah, they vacuum it out, really like a heavy duty vacuum.
They vacuum it out. It's fantastic. And then for all of the homes that have any kind of mold, we also add the sanitizing part of it, so that there is no leftover, spurs, particles, or any of that. Make sure it's all out. It's fairly inexpensive. It's a great feature. And anytime a realtor is trying to sell your property when it's on the market, it's great that it's in there. Hey, they just had the whole system clean, including the air ducts. Like, you're walking into a fresh property. And it a lot of times, if you have the homes that there was smokers, it creates this like yellow film in the air ducts. And whenever there's condensation buildup in the vents, there's little drops that sometimes happen. It happens all the time. You see them yellow if there was smokers. And then if you have a white roof, it will stain it. A freshly painted roof will be stained from that condensation. So clean those air ducts, because that eliminates that. That's actually why we started doing it.
Also, how much would it cost for like 1,400 square feet?
So it would be about 200, 250 for the ducts and about 150 for the air handler.
Okay.
I have a great group of HVAC people if you guys need them. They're very fair in pricing and they're very accessible. So I haven't had an issue with them not coming out to a call within at least 48 hours. So that's going to be a big one too.
Well,
14.
I posted your information in both of the groups, and I'm going to have them contact you for any vendors or questions that they have, so that they make sure that they make a relationship with you, so that you get the business, and that you can, get to know them as well. And so every time you say, I have this great vendor or what have you, I'm just going to keep pointing everybody back to your Facebook page for Task Pro, and making sure that they contact you directly.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a contractor, I don't do everything in a house. I don't do roofs. I don't do plumbing that's inside of a wall. I don't do electrical. I'll do light fixtures, switches, outlets, I'll do stuff like that. But I've worked so much with my contractors that do that I could quote a house up in a heartbeat. So you don't need to contact 4, 5, 6 different people to get some numbers. You should find a contractor that can get it all for you in one. That's why I reemphasize your project manager is going to be your best friend. Also, look for contractors that can give you creative solutions. A lot of times contractors don't want to deal with certain things. They just want to tear it down, build it, and be done. I love the fact that we can offer creative solutions. Okay, let's look at it like this. Okay, maybe we can't redo the bathroom, but we can add this to give it this look or this finish. And you're going to need somebody who's going to be really creative. And I've met several contractors throughout, our business that I've worked with that offer that as well. So, and I there's enough business for everybody. So I even tell you, have 1 or 2 or 3 contractors in your contacts, because if they're good, they're busy. And you don't want to hold up a project or be delayed because your preferred contractor is busy. You always want to have 1, 2, or 3 that will be available that you can kind of keep turning and keep sending business to. And in all truthfulness, it keeps people on their toes as far as pricing, because they know that you do have more than one person you're working with. So just keep those things in mind. I have a handful that we also work with together that I have no problem sharing with you guys, so that you could reach out to them as well.
We have a question about flooring, that not on this home, which is 1,400 square feet, which is a mobile home. It says, what is your preference for flooring for a regular block home? You might have to ask a couple of questions of Ruby about that to get an idea of what size of home it is, because that's going to be per square feet.
It's really going to come down to your price point and the area. When we're looking at foundation homes, you can pretty much put anything you want. We have a house in Windermere right now, and the couple is adamant about putting hardwood small plank floors, because they love that like old world New York, Chicago flooring. Kind of creaks when you walk on it. It ages very well. That house is in the $400,000 range. We have another house that we're doing in Dr. Phillips that's about $500,000 range. They're putting marble in the entire floor. You're looking at 2,000 square feet of marble flooring. I have another house in Ocoee that's about $300,000. They're putting all vinyl. It's really going to come down to who's your client, what does the area call for. The house in Dr. Phillips that's putting the marble in, I would never put vinyl in there. That you're not going to walk in and see 3,000 square foot of vinyl, and it's not going to match the area and what other homes have been selling for and what other homes have updated their homes with. So that's kind of like a case by case question. So it just depends price point and what the area, and do your research. You don't need to be a real estate agent to get access to all these properties. Get on Zillow, see what's on the market in your particular area. If your goal is to sell it, do finishes that are comparable to what other people have done in that neighborhood. so that you can be competitive, and put your money where it's going to make sense. Don't over improve the house if it doesn't call for it.
Perfect. Awesome. And there was let's see, I've answered all the rest of the questions in the chat, so I guess you can go on past flooring, whatever your next subject was.
Past flooring, you know, so a couple prices that I like to throw out there. A lot of times we have our clients that want to update all of the outlets and light switches. It's a great update. It's very inexpensive to do. Depending how many you have, you would be looking anywhere from $7 to $10 an outlet or a light switch to replace. So for $400 or $500, it's a great feature to be able to provide when you're selling your home. As far as updating light fixtures, fans, and so forth, I'll throw some numbers out there, and every contractor will price them differently. I'm just giving you kind of like averages. So if it's a little higher, a little lower, you know, don't shoot me for it. When we're updating light fixtures, if they're standard flushed ceiling light fixtures, you're looking at about $35 per light fixture to update those. If it's a fan, you're looking anywhere from $100 to $150 for that to replace it. These are just numbers that I want you guys to have, because if you walk into a house and you have 100 and plus outlets and switches to take into consideration for updating, those are prices that you really need to have for your overall estimate. The same with light fixtures. If you have 5 fans, 7 light fixtures, it's good to know what that's going to cost to switch them out as well. This is just labor costs too, okay? These are just labor costs, so obviously you're going to have to also take into consideration what it would cost you for the actual materials, which I have all those running costs. If you guys want to know, just to jot it down, just ask me questions, and I have no problem doing that. So light fixtures, fans, outlets, switches. Can't think of anything else. Do you guys have any questions when it comes to those things?
Does this house need that?
Yes. All of the light fixtures were removed. So they have all the light fixtures still there in the house. This is a problem with old light fixtures, okay? When you go into a property and you want to remove the light fixture, make sure it's working. Make sure your bulbs are in and it's actually working, because what happens is you'll remove it, you'll pay for your contractor to put it back, and then it's not working, and you're like, wait, what happened? And now you got to pay for it again. So if you're going to use existing stuff, make sure it's working before it's removed, because then it's such a waste of money. And we have clients do that all the time, and I hate to, you know, put a change order on them, but when you're changing out 4 or 5 and you can't guarantee that half of them are working, it's just added expenses that are unnecessary.
Right.
Now let's say a lot of homes we walk into, they don't have ceiling lights, and this is a huge plus. You know, like, people don't want to walk into dark rooms that are solely reliable on lamp lighting. So a lot of times we do have to hardwire new ceiling lights. Just to give you an idea of what that should run, to bring a new light fixture into a ceiling with its own switch, that usually runs about $175 to $225 per light fixture. So whenever you guys are going through and you want somebody to give you a quote on hardwiring some new lighting in there, those are usually the running costs for that.
Okay, gotcha, perfect. And so there's a question in the chat about what is the cost to put in a GFI outlet in a damp area that doesn't have one? Is that the same number you just quoted, or is that a different number?
GFIs are a little bit more expensive. Usually, you know, you can count on it being about $15 to $20 to update a GFI. And you are definitely going to want this done and make sure it's to code by your dishwashers, by your sinks, in your bathrooms, by the washing machine. those things always come back in inspection reports as not up to code, and we got to go in and switch them out. So just
And
make sure that that's done.
and that's if the outlet's already there, but they're asking if it
Yeah.
doesn't have one at all, like there's no outlet there and you have to run a new outlet, is what I think Ruby's asking about.
Sure, it would be the same. It would be about $175
Okay, gotcha.
to run in a new one.
Okay, super. All right, great.
Another question that we get a lot of times as far as kitchens is, I want to take the stove and move it to the island. Although that seems very easy, they could run that 220 cable from the wall to the stove when it's against the wall. When it's on an island, there's no surrounding wall for them to run that 220 cable, so they've got to go through the ground. If it's a manufactured home, when it's a foundation home, it's different. Either way, those costs are pretty expensive. You would be looking at about $900 to $1,200 to do that. Okay, so when you're reconfiguring, you're doing moves like that, just take that into consideration. Okay. The same with the sinks. People like to move the sink from the window to the island. A couple things that have to happen there. Number one, you've got to move your drain, which in a foundation home, it could be pretty troublesome. Number two, you have to move the electrical so that your dishwasher will continue to function on the islands as well. To give you a ballpark, if it's a foundation home, it has a foundation slab and you're making that move, you'd be looking at about $2,000 to $2,500 for a move like that. If it's, you know, a modular home like this, you'd be looking at about $900 to maybe $1,500 to move something like that.
Okay, nice. So
also, stove hoods. The current stove hood that is in the home right now, it doesn't go to the attic and out through the ceiling. It just moves the air. If you did want to install an actual stove hood that went through the ceiling, you'd be looking at about $700 to $900 for that. And that is for a home like this, that's one level. Depending the home, that will change drastically. There's some homes that are multi-level and you can't go through the attic. You gotta go through a crawl space and out on the side. There's some homes that it just depends, that have crazy heights, you know, so you gotta extend those tubes even further. So, but just to give you a ballpark on this home, you'd be looking at that for a stove hood.
gotcha. Awesome.
And I don't want to give you information overload. A lot of these things, after your second and third flip, it's going to come like second nature. You're going to just know the costs and things like that. I just like for you guys to have the information so that at the end of your first, you know, flip, you don't have 20, 30 change orders that have now added another 6,000-7,000 to your bid. You know, you guys have a lot of those costs up front and can make choices based on what you know.
There's another question in the chat. Does it need any permit to replace the sides and ceiling light?
Like interior ceiling lights? No. Whenever you're adding electrical, you really should pull permits. It's really important. That's a protection for you. Even after the home is sold, you know, like because an inspector's going to come in, they're going to make sure that your contractor did it right and it's up to code. So yeah, if you're adding electrical, you really should be pulling your permits. As far as siding work, if you're doing minor repairs, no, you don't need a permit. But if it's moderate, yeah, you should pull the permit, because you don't know what you don't know, right? And you don't know if your contractor's doing it 100% up to code. For a few $100, you know, you pull your permit and there's another set of eyes making sure that contractor is doing it the way it's supposed to be. So yes, you should pull them if it's anything more than just a minor repair
Okay,
of siding.
wonderful. And are you done with the different areas of the house to where you can give us like a full number of what it would take to get this to like a tenant level and what it would take to get it to a retail level? Or do you have some other spots that you have to go over first?
No, absolutely. And taking into consideration the structure, making sure that structurally sound, uh, make making sure the necessary changes have been made, like paint, flooring, some mold remediation, the appliances, the kitchen remodel, 2 bathroom remodels. We would be looking to get it up for rental. You'd be right around 15 to 20,000
Mhm.
if we wanted to get it for the renovation. If we wanted to get it to a retail level, we'd be looking at about 25,000. And that, a good part of that is kind of opening up that ceiling slightly so that we can see just how much work needs to go into the structure. That's me assuming worst case scenarios. And once we're in, we hope that, we could get it under. But those are the numbers that you would be looking at as far as this property. Um, but whatever numbers you're ever given, and even if I tell my client, I'm going to give you a worst case scenario, but let's hope for the best, you
Add
should
some.
still tack on another 10% on that
Okay. So,
for any stuff that you, go ahead.
so I was going to say, after you're done, I'm going to actually go ahead and do a quick CMA on this house and see what our 0.65, number would be, and then throw your number as far as, repairs would be on that, and see what our maximum allowable offer would be, just because we're all here and we have the tools and knowledge to be able to do it, and putting into place what you already have put as numbers, that would be just fantastic and fascinating. So if you say an average of tenant would be 18, so 20 to 25 you said, and then a retail would be 25 to 30, is that correct? Or 15?
Correct.
Yes,
It
15
would
to
be
20 for tenant.
right.
Okay,
And then 20 to 25 for retail.
so we will say 18K for tenant, and then retail, we're going to say 23K, just to have that average. And then I'm going to do my BPO and kind of get the numbers, land those numbers, and then have people know what a maximum allowable offer would be for this. Do you have anything else to add before I do that?
No, I don't. Like I said in the beginning, if you guys eventually have the opportunity to schedule an appointment and look at this property, it's a dream for a flip, providing the numbers make sense, obviously. But this is the kind of property that you dream of walking into, having to do these, cosmetic updates to, and you're in and you're out. To do all of these things to this property, the work would take about, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks, and you're done.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Good to know, because that's going to come into play with their carrying costs. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to go back to doing that thing I do. If Alba and Ron can just hang out for a bit, in case there's any other questions that get thrown into the chat, I'll look at those at the end. And so we're going to go back into this property in the matrix. You guys have seen me do this a million times before, so I'm going to do it decently fast. It's not going to be slow like I do when I teach it, for 35 minutes or so. So I'm going to do this lightning fast. I'm going to duplicate my tab. Then I'm going to pull down residential, quick. I'm going to throw this address into my search bar, pull that down. I'm going to pull down 0.5 miles, take off active, put on sold. And so I'm comparing, hopefully, apples to apples. I want to make sure that I only have manufactured home and mobile home, not single family homes. So we have 3 results there. If I could be so lucky as to have it be a 3-2, since our property is a 3-2, let's see, is it a 3? They all stayed. That's very exciting. 2, they all stayed. That's super exciting. So I have now within 0.5 miles of the subject property, sold within 180 days, 3-2 properties. Let's look at the results. Let's just see if they are a true comparison to this property. And the property that is closest to this, or as close as it can be, is 105 that it sold for. The next one is 124, and the next one is 157. And so the one that's 105 is a 1.5 bath, so it's a little bit off. If I was doing a BPO, I would probably add for that other half bath, I would probably add another 4,000 or 5,000 that needed to go on there if it had the 2 bathroom. But it's going to be averages anyway. I'm not going to do any real adjustments. So let's just see what the numbers look like there, and then we're going to see if there's any adjustments that need to be made. So it's saying the average or median value here is 124.9. So let's call it 125 because, I'm not that hip on breaking down the math that closely. And so let's look at these 3 properties and just see if they're in the same kind of shape as what we have. Let's see, it has a nice big lot. That's comparable. It's much more updated. Okay, yeah, no, they did a good job on this, a really good job. Yeah, this is beautiful. It's got, it's a little darker on the paint than I would normally go for either a rental or a resale. But you know what? They did a fantastic job at it. So this 115 property that sold for 105 compared to our property is a bargain. So yeah, so not looking so good at this second on the value of our home. Because that one's way better. The subject property is not as good as the one that we're comparing it to. So let's look again. Oh yeah, no, yeah. Super clean, hardwood floors, all this good stuff. So this room's a little rough. Let's see. But everything else looks pretty nice. They have kind of a higher grade carpet in there that's more durable. So if you're putting in tenants, it's got a little age on it, but I'm not worried about that. And then it has this nice patio area in the back. Okay, all right, so this one's also a little better than what we have. Let's look at the next one. Big property, really nice flooring. They did a great job on the colors. Everything looks up to date. It's not like super duper high end or anything. It looks like a manufacturer mobile home inside, but it looks good. Looks really good. Okay, so what does that do for me as far as informative to what I would offer? Okay, so if these 3 homes that have sold within 0.5 miles and 180 days of this property are way better than what we have, then there's no way we could touch the list price of 127. So I would say my BPO would definitely be much lower than that, because the not just the 124, but lower than that even. So I would have to throw that my BPO value would be somewhere in the neighborhood, okay, of about 100,000, and that the after repair value might be 124 if you did everything that she's saying. So what do we need to do? We need to take what that after repair value is, so say maybe 125, and so we have 125 times 0.65 is 81, and then she's saying for a tenant we would need 18,000 in repairs, minus that 18. So my maximum offer, my maximum allowable offer would be about 63. Why? Because number one, the first bite at the apple, I need to get it as low as I can because things happen, because we're going to end up with repairs we didn't expect, mold we didn't see, some outdated thing, we can't replace the exact same thing, so we have to replace the whole thing. All of that stuff is going to happen. And so we want to make sure we get it as low as we can. The tricky part about this deal is there's only 25 days on the market. That's why I love days on the market to be over 100. So they have a little bit of pain in the process. And so in my world, if you got it for, you know, in that neighborhood of like 68, 70,000, you're going to be okay. You're still going to have plenty of margin because we know you can put the repairs in there and you still have enough margin for you to make a profit. If you get it for more than that, then either you need to do a much skinnier repair and you may not come out with the quality that compares to the neighbors, because those neighbors are looking pretty good to me right now, you know? And so, you know, I like how they've done everything, and the things that have been repaired and cleaned and rehabbed and what have you, they've done it in a good way. They haven't done bad repairs or bad, like owner specials, I call them. And so, yeah, so you're gonna need to get this for a very low price in order to make a good profit on it. And so because we talked at the very beginning in deal analysis about getting seller financing. So if I could get seller financing for 100, okay, knowing that I was going to put 25 or so into it, then that would be a good rental. And then I would keep that long term, or at least have a 5 or 10-year balloon so that then I could enjoy some appreciation. And so hopefully that's informative to what you guys are thinking on this deal, and also gives you an idea what you might offer and what you might have to do for repairs. And then obviously at the end of the day, what you might be able to resell it for retail if you did those things. Are there any additional questions about what I just said? Let me look in the chat. Okay, let's see. For a foundation home that's an average rehab for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, reselling in the 2 to 250,000 price range to get it retail ready. I don't understand that question. Okay. So open up your mic if you're asking this question, because I can't see who did it.
Yes. So my question was like, what's the average rehab cost for a 3-bed, 2-bath that sells around like the $200,000 to $250,000 price range? Like, what's the average rehab cost to get it retail ready, like that you're seeing right now in the market?
What area are you talking about?
Let's say Orlando, like 32810 or 32808 in that area.
I was going to have to spitball on that one because it's too general, but you know, she might have an answer for it. Go ahead and open up your mic, Alba. Go ahead and open up your mic so we can hear you.
Nope.
There you go. There you go.
Okay. So it's just so hard to kind of throw out a number like that. If we're just doing like a cosmetic, maybe updating, you know, the bathrooms, no big remodels. We're not, you know, moving location of anything, tearing walls down or anything. 3.2, you know, you'd probably be looking floors, paint, no kitchen update, maybe just a counter update. You'd probably be looking around the same 20,000. It's so hard to like estimate like that. It really is. I hate to even say that, throw out a number like that, because it's kind of hard. But that's probably, if I had to guess, hey, you know, if I acquired this property to get it to where we want to be, 3.2, what do you think? I would say, you know, roughly about 20 grand.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. If you have any questions, oh, I got a couple more questions. Doggone it. You guys just went all crazy. Let's see. After that one was, if for mobile that keeps driving me crazy. 1 second. It was going too fast on me trying to go down.
Hey, Arcoma,
Uh,
what would that property rent for, the one we're looking at today? What's the rent?
I will pull a rental analysis on it here in just a second. I forgot to do that. You guys did ask that question in the chat. Ruby did, and I forgot. So it says, let me answer these other questions and I'll go back to that. The one mobile is only 1057 square feet and much older, and used it. The other two is comps. ARV may be much higher for the subject. That could be possible, but remember, I'm putting in offers. I want my number to be as low as I can, and I want to negotiate as low as I can, right? And so yes, if I'm getting an appraisal, okay, then they may only take the closest two comps instead of the three. But if we're doing our offer, we have to spitball it. There's only 3 solds in the last 180 days that are mobile homes. We kind of have to use them. And so if there's a huge difference, like 20 years in difference, then we might take a little off of that property and compare it to ours. But I don't do a lot of adjustments when I'm just in the offer phase. Once I've gotten the offer done, then I do the inspection bite, then I do the title bite, then I do the appraisal bite. So then we would start to see the difference in the numbers. But I'm going to go 0.65 minus repairs, so I'm always going to win. With seller financing for 100K, what would that look like? So in my world, what it would look like is I would ask them, okay, so how much do you have left on your loan? Their original loan was a year ago, 30,000. I'm going to assume that they had paid very little on it, that there's still close to 30,000 still left. My down payment would be to pay off that $30,000 loan, whatever's left. Okay, so that's 25 or 30%, depending on which way you look at your numbers. And so that would be my down payment. I would pay off their loan, so they would be free and clear. And they would be the first lien holder, of course, because there's only going to be one lien, which would be do a note and mortgage on this property in their name, as they are the owner of that loan. And I would most likely offer them about a 6% loan. And so that's what I usually get in my loans when I'm an investor. You might be able to get lower than that if you have a good relationship with your lender. You might, a hard money loan, if you're only keeping it for a while just to rehab it, you might get 10% or 12%. So say, for example, I'm getting into this for 30,000 by paying off their regular loan, and I'm paying it off with hard money. I would then get it probably at 10 or 12%, but I'm expecting to do these repairs, do the 25 that Alba said, and then at that next level, I'm sending it out retail. I'm flipping it retail. And so I only have a $55,000 loan plus the, plus the cost of the repairs. And so, maybe a 6% loan over 30 years if they'll do that, maybe 20 if they won't do that long out, possibly put a balloon on it for 5 or 10 years so they get their money back out. That also gives me the benefit of the appreciation for that next 5 to 10 years. And, I want to be able to, make it work for them. So I would give them retail price, so that pay off their 30,000 and give them $100,000 seller financing. Let's see. And so now I'm going to do the rental analysis. That was the other thing that I promised. Okay, so going back again, and this may have they may have rentals out there and they may not. So I'm not promising you that there's going to be, but I always want to go back to the same source. So if I'm pulling the comp from the source, I need to pull the rentals from the source too. And my source is MLS. Obviously, I'm a broker associate with eXp Realty, so I have to go to the same source. And so let's go here and search rental. I'm going to pull this up. Miles. So there's 6 active rentals out there. Let's see if there's any leased rentals out there. No leased rentals. Let me go out a little bit in space. See if I put, I'm not pulling any that have been rented in that space. And so active rentals, let's look at those. No, it's not pulling the right information. 1 second, it's in vacant active. So let's do rental quick. Do this again. Somehow I got over into that area. Okay. There's no active rentals. How about leased? This is having a delay. So any out there, withdrawn, leased, and everything is a hodgepodge of shenanigans within 0.5 miles. And who knows how long they go out. When were they leased? This one was 5/5/2020, so not that far out. This one was also 5/5/2020. And let's see, comparison on the space. It's a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. Yeah. So I'm going to spitball and think that this rental out there would probably be about 1,100 is what I think, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. That would probably be the best price that I would be able to get as far as rental. You could also pull a rent-a-meter and you could do all that kind of stuff, but I think that's probably a good thumbnail. And then, you know, as you go along and it's rehabbed, there might be some rentals that pop up. Let's see if there's any other questions before we go. Oh, excellent presentation with great information. So thankful that you guys were able to do this today. I don't know what's going to happen next month because I don't know what's going to happen with the COVID numbers and with people's, you know, risk exposure. And so I'm going to assume that we're going to do this again Zoom next month, and that we'll just play it by ear each month until we figure out if we can go back to in-person events. And then, you know, I think this was fun and, you know, exciting and what have you, but, you know, I'm such a dork. And so I hope you guys also felt that way. Thank you so much to Ron from Inspectigator and Alba from Task Pro. You guys are just amazing today and just really came through for me, even though we changed this event a week ago to Zoom. And I know that you guys were super busy to in your own businesses and were able to take that time out and do this for me. And I really appreciate it. I will put all of your contact information into both the Osceola Repair Group and the Academy for REI so that business goes directly back to you guys and that people address their questions to you as well. Thank you so much. I'll sign this off and there will be a recorded version of it that you guys can access later. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Do you guys mind hanging on for 1 second?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.